This video will review 4 basic sentence patterns. A key component to writing is that it should not only make sense grammatically, but the idea should also connect and flow smoothly from one to another. One way to make sentences flow smoothly is to use various sentence patterns. There are 2 key parts to every sentence. We must first have a subject. A subject is the who or the what in the sentence, doing the action or expressing the relationship or condition in the sentence. Second, we must have a verb. A verb expresses the action, condition, or relationship to the subject. Sentence Pattern 1. Simple sentence. A simple sentence contains a subject, a verb, and expresses a complete thought. For example, Jose studied for the exam. Jose is our subject, and studied is our verb. A simple sentence can have a compound subject or a compound verb, but there is still only one main subject-verb pair. Elaine, Lily, and Stephanie needed someone to proofread their papers. This sentence has a compound subject. He reviewed the assignment and wrote practice sentences. This sentence has a compound verb. Sentence Pattern 2. Compound sentence. When you want to join 2 complete sentences, use a semicolon, a comma and a coordinating conjunction, or a semicolon, a conjunctive adverb, and a comma. An example of a compound sentence with a semicolon. Jose wrote his paper. His classmates then gave him feedback on his writing. An example of a compound sentence with a comma and a coordinating conjunction. Jose studied, but Chris fell asleep. An example of a compound sentence with a semicolon, a conjunctive adverb, and a comma. Jose passed the exam, however, Chris failed it. When using a coordinating conjunction, only use a comma when joining 2 complete sentences. Jose had a rough start last semester, but was doing great by the end. This sentence is a simple sentence with a compound verb, therefore no comma is used with but. Sentence Pattern 3. Complex sentence. Complex sentences consist of an independent clause and a dependent clause. These types of sentences can be made in a variety of ways. One way is to use a subordinating conjunction. Any clause that begins with a subordinating conjunction is a dependent clause. This dependent clause can then be joined to an independent clause to make a complex sentence. Because he had studied hard, Jose aced the exam. Jose aced the exam because he had studied hard. Note, in this example, a comma is not used since the dependent clause follows the independent clause. Another way to create a complex sentence is by using an adjective clause. Adjective clauses begin with a relative pronoun and modify a noun. The dog that is wearing a red collar belongs to my neighbor. Dr. Jacobs, who practices cardiology, wants to retire in 3 years. Noun clauses can also be used to create complex sentences. Noun clauses function in the same way as nouns and noun phrases, which means they can serve as subjects, objects, and complements. Whoever borrowed the restroom key will bring it back soon. The professor knows that students have questions about the test. Sentence Pattern 4. Compound complex sentence. These sentences have at least 2 independent clauses and at least 1 dependent clause. The following examples show how you can make complex sentences with a subordinating conjunction. However, keep in mind that noun clauses and adjective clauses are also dependent clauses. Jose wrote a rough draft and he went to the tutoring center because he needed help. Although he hadn't studied, Chris expected to pass, but he was wrong. Connecting ideas using coordinators and subordinators. The following chart shows coordinators and common subordinators used when moving from point to point within a paragraph. So versus so that. Note that in the previous chart, so is a coordinating conjunction, and so that is a subordinating conjunction. They have different meanings. So expresses a consequence or result, whereas so that expresses a purpose or goal. Kendra lost her umbrella, so she needs to buy a new one. So introduces the result of Kendra losing her umbrella. Kendra ran to the store so that she could buy a new umbrella. So that introduces the purpose of Kendra going to the store. So that can be reduced to so, but it remains a subordinating conjunction and is not used with a comma. Kendra went to the store so she could buy a new umbrella. This concludes the review video for the Basic Sentence Patterns DLA. Please refer to the DLA for more information and to complete all of the DLA activities. Thank you.